So just so that everyone knows who is who, I'm speaking with, starting closest to me, Shelly Flockhart, Jen Turner, who is the leader of moms around the world, but really specifically, let me tell you, I mean, again, I always say to you, whenever I see you, it's like you are a walking party. It's like all attention, you are going to be heard. No one is going to put you in the corner. So party all unto herself, Jen Turner. And then we have Terry Patrick. And each of you ladies have your own reasons for getting into this battle. And specifically, you three focus on school boards here in the state of Iowa. I'm coming straight to you ladies because I want others to hear you. So if you would, just tell me a little bit about who you are and what got you into this fight.
My first alarm in the whole thing didn't start with the kids. It started when I own a salon and I had to lock the doors during COVID and didn't know when I was going to be able to open back up again. And something inside me was like, this is really wrong. It gave me time to just kind of think through what's going on with our nation and where we were headed. And then during that period of time, kids were at home doing their schoolwork, which they weren't really doing any schoolwork. And saw what assignments were. And when my kids went back to school that year, my daughter, who is in high school, she had a language arts assignment that was on critical race theory or Black Lives Matter. She was given the resources she was allowed to use. And she came home and she said, hey, I have this assignment. We have to discuss it at the end of it, and I'm not comfortable with that. They said I could opt out. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. And I started going through it, and I was just like, what's happening?
Right.
You know, why, when we did that assignment when I was in high school, it was like, why should cheerleading be considered a sport?
Right.
It wasn't political, divisive, you know, I want you to agree with me type of a thing, and you could use the resources. I mean, that was part of it, is finding credible resources.
And not being, like the first thing that popped in my mind when you said she was given the resources she could use. It's as if, our children is being walked down this particular path. Like, this is what you are allowed to think. You can only use these resources. I don't recall I recall people giving me an assignment, and then I got to choose what resources I use. So red flag number one.
Yes. So that was my biggest alert, and then started looking into things and what are they actually learning, and found out about some of the books in the libraries, and it was just piling on. And the more I was trying to find things out from the school, the more transparency was not there. We had a group, kind of a parent group, that was trying to fight for transparency, and it was hard getting anywhere. And so that was when we came to the Capitol. Basically, what we had found out about a couple things going on at the Capitol, and then met these guys.
And now when was this?
This was last fall.
Last fall.
Yeah. So
okay.
About this time last year. Yeah.
So
and then just dove in.
Since last fall. Okay.
Dove in.
It feels like 10 years.
I know.
It does. It really does. I've only been doing this meaning being just very public and very much in the world of politics for 3 years. And 3 years feels like a decade.
Yeah.
Right.
It really does. Like every month, every week feels about like a month, right? Like it's just so much information and so much that is happening all at once. Jen, tell us your story.
Okay. So mine was before COVID, but I don't think I put it all together until maybe during COVID. But my son was 8 or 9, and he came home from school and said, I want to take a DNA test. And I was like, kid.
9 years old.
I can promise you I know who your dad is and I'm your mom, right? And he said, no, his skin is much lighter like mine. His dad is black. He said, I want to know how black I am.
Wow.
Because being white is bad. Like, I want to be darker like my dad. And I went,
That is so wrong.
and it didn't even, I didn't know where it was coming from, right? Like, I thought maybe they did a simple lesson in slavery, and it became more than that, right? So then COVID happens, and he is at home. And then we went back to this hybrid schooling, which was so fun. And there was an article that came out in the Iowa Standard, which is a conservative news piece, and it said, Johnston parents, beware of what your fourth graders are doing today or something. And I looked at that and went, what are my fourth graders doing today?
Yeah.
And it came out that they were doing a virtual field trip on a kids' play about racism. And so I thought, okay, so I look it up and I watch a kid's play about racism, and it's like, hi, my name's Jamal. My mom is white and my dad is black, and that makes me different. Kids are mean to me. And I went, I wouldn't send my son to sit in class for that. Like, he doesn't want all eyes on him. And at 10 years old, they all look at each other as just friends, people. Color's not a thing.
Right.
And now we're making it a thing. So I emailed the teacher. Well, one dad emailed too and said, hey, why didn't we sign a permission slip for this?
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's virtual. You didn't need to. And he said, but you made us sign one for the virtual Nutcracker. So at that point it went, okay, what is
Going on.
right?
What is
So,
driving this?
I had posted, I had posted on a Johnston parents page, I forwarded the Iowa Standard article on and said, are any parents aware of this? The hate I got from that post, you are the biggest racist. I can't believe you don't want your son sitting in this class. I mean, it was extreme. That was a very anxiety-filled week because I was like shocked.
Right.
And the people that agreed with me wouldn't say it publicly.
Right.
They would send me a private message.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and I went, you can't stand up and say what you believe because you will get attacked.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, that summer. I was watching.
Summer of what? 2020?
What's that?
2020.
No, it would have been 2021.
2021.
I saw, or the spring maybe of 2021, I saw on Fox News these navy and white shirts said Moms for Liberty. And I went, that's an organization I'm going to look into. Because if you have people standing behind you,
It's so much easier.
it's much easier. And now
And I don't know if
people are
it's
speaking
easier.
out.
It just gives you, like, you're not alone.
Right.
A lot of what we felt during 2020, it was so isolating for so many people, right? And you have the time, you're not rushing to get to work, rushing to put dinner on the table, you're at home. So now you have time, people are paying attention to what's going on around them, and you're like, wait a minute, how did we fall so far? How has this kind of thinking become such mainstream, but you're isolated, you're all by yourself?
Right.
And then when you try to say something to your point, you get vilified and dragged all across the nation. So an organization like Moms for Liberty, I'm sure that probably gave you not permission to say it, but encouragement. You didn't feel
Something
alone.
about those matching shirts.
It was a matching shirt.
No, it really was just like,
But maybe even
there are other
with
people.
that, like, you're not alone. Like, there are others, right?
Right.
Matching
There are other
shirts
people.
unite.
Like, courage is contagious, I think, is
It
a true
is.
statement, right?
It's
Once
yeah.
one person steps up, then you're like, there are more of us. It's
Yeah.
not just me sitting on this isolated.
Yeah, you know what? Fear is contagious,
Yes.
but courage is contagious
Yes.
too, right?
100%.
Yeah. That is so true. And something that you were saying earlier is that the measure of freedom is the number of people who feel like they can say out loud what they're thinking. Like, that should be the measure of how free are you? I think the rubric says, do you feel comfortable saying out loud what you're thinking? Right? Because when that begins to narrow, maybe you're not as free as you thought you were. Right? But let's just go back to your son, 9 years old.
So
coming
but
home
I have
asking for
to
a
tell you
DNA
the
test.
best part of this, though. I have to fast forward to us starting Moms for Liberty and my son thinking I'm kind of wacko. Right now, what is she doing? Showing
Because
up
he
at
doesn't want a
school board?
spotlight.
No. In 5th grade, then we're all back to school, everything's normal, and I get a call from his teacher. And this was my aha moment. She said, Cooper walked out of class today. I've never gotten a call from, he's like, perfect child, right?
Follow the rules.
So they were reading a book called Black Brother out loud. And in Black Brother, there's, again, biracial parents, and there's 2 twin boys, and one has much darker skin and one has much lighter skin, and the whole school hated the dark-skinned brother. It went as far as to say the secretary was frightened of him, and he got taken away to jail on such day of school. And Cooper got up and walked out of class and sat in the hallway. And she went out and said, what's going on? He said, I don't want to listen to this book. My family doesn't believe this.
Yay, Cooper.
And stood up, and I went, okay, this is why we do what we do, right?
Exactly.
Like, we stand out and put ourselves on the line so that they know that they can stand up for themselves and put them on the line.
Makes me
Crying.
I mean, because this is, I was saying to you ladies before we started that I was allowed to be a kid. I was allowed to go play, to go skip rocks. I was allowed to go do dumb stuff and not be canceled, not have it go viral on social media, which didn't exist back then. And today, by the age of 9, our children have to figure out world problems, right? How to solve climate change problems, right? If you haven't figured it out by 9, there's something wrong with you. You're mediocre. You're not measuring up. And it is so anxiety inducing. And so as a Black woman, married to a Black man, raising Black babies, I have often had to tell these white liberals, you do not care more about my Black children than I do. I can assure you, I care more about them, right? But also, I was very firm with my baby very early on. This critical race theory, I said it way back when it first rose its ugly head, is that it is going to make America racist again.
Absolutely. Correct.
Right? It's going to make everyone hypersensitive, walking on eggshells, judging me by the color of my skin again, which is where we are now, because now in the new left, your worth and your identity is measured by your race, your gender, and your sexuality. It's all exterior. Has nothing to do with who I am as a person.
Right.
The content of my character, swipe left. We don't want to talk about that, right? It's all about the external, right? How dark are you, right? What kind of hair texture do you have? What is your sexual orientation? Are you male, female? Well, now you don't know. You're just fluid, right? But I remember telling my children very early on is that the color of our skin, you are not trapped. The color of your skin is not a prison sentence. Because of the color of your skin, somehow you are not, it has not defined you and relegated you over to the side where other people with lighter skin color have better privileges, better access to a world that your brown skin has barred you from. But that's the mentality. And so I'm listening to you, I'm listening to your story about Cooper, retelling of Cooper's experience. And at 10, he knew that this is not me. I don't believe this. I am not a victim because my skin color is a little bit darker than someone else, or because of my father.
Right. Yeah. And then we introduce them to people that like you. You know what I mean? Like, you introduce them and say, don't listen to what they're saying. He did a wax museum, and you know who he was in his 5th grade wax museum? Dr. Ben Carson. And not a single teacher knew who Dr. Ben Carson was.
Wow.
I mean, that right
I
there
bet they
was...
know who Ibram X. Kendi is.
Absolutely.
I bet they know who
And
Ibram
that's
X.
where,
Kendi is.
Teach about the people that have worked hard and become something, not because of the color of their skin, because they worked hard.
Poverty is not a death sentence.
Right.
The color of my skin is not, it does not sentence me to a particular type of life. I don't know if you ladies know my story at all, but I grew up on a pig farm in southern Alabama. I grew up very impoverished. I often say I grew up below the bottom rung of the economic ladder. I grew up in a home with no insulation, no running water, an outhouse on the back and a well on the side. When I say poor, we couldn't afford the other O, we were just poor. But when you're a child, no one told me. I had no idea because I was loved.
Right.
I was allowed to be a child. I felt loved. I felt protected, right? And I was the first to go to college in my family. I mean, the first in many regards in my family to do so many things, but spent 10 years in the U.S. military, accepted into officer candidate school, worked in the financial industry, adjunct professor of corporate finance, corporate America, authored my first book that went #1 on Amazon right when COVID shut down, ran 2 very competitive races for Congress and U.S. Senate, and now I'm the National Grassroots Director for Vivek Ramaswamy's presidential campaign. Who would have been able to map that out?
Right.
Who would have sentenced me as that little Black girl looking around the world to say, your color has barred you. Your DNA has been stamped with victim.
Right.
Right.
I think that would have just, I had so many nails in the coffin, so to speak, of my life. I think had someone come and said, Kathy, you will never be, everybody is against you. You might as well not try, kid. Right? I think that would have barred me. I think it certainly would have presented a hurdle that may have been too high for me to jump. And then I look at my babies and who they are and the opportunities that they now have that they would not have had if I was still on that pig farm in southern Alabama today, right? And so, but these are the reasons why. I was a stay-at-home mom 3 years ago, homeschooling my kids because I saw 10 years ago what most people are just now waking up to see, right? And I saw it and I was like, there is no way on God's green earth these people are going to be teaching my children this. And that's the reason why I wanted people to hear your stories, to hear our stories.
Right.
We are not radicals, except for we love our babies, but we're not extremists. We are not destroying our democracy. We're trying to do our part to make sure that our children, our family, have an even better version of the American story than the one we inherited. Terry.
So not unlike Shelly's story, mine started with the CRT as well. And I think what Shelly probably neglected to mention is we actually passed a bill to prohibit divisive concepts from being taught. And when my son started school as a sophomore, his first day of school, there was an article posted outside of a teacher's room, and it had a list of all of these things that I thought were extremely racist too. Like it talked about, the texture of people's hair, like how to make people feel. I can't remember the exact name.
And why do I need you to make me feel comfortable about the texture of my hair?
It was hugely inappropriate. So I raised an issue with the principal, and he agreed with me, and he went and took it down right away. And I said, "That's great, but we just enacted this law. How are you dealing with that? Can you follow up with me?" A couple months later, another language arts teacher at the school was caught on undercover video talking about ways to work around HF 802. And so again, I reached out.
What is the bill?
It's about divisive concepts. So it's not CRT isn't used, but there's not
Same thing.
systemic racism, and we're all one people, and so then she's caught, and it's at the same high school, and so then I'm like, is this prevalent in my district? And then I found out, talking about Rice Kendi, that in 8th grade social studies, they were using that as part of curriculum. And I raised a concern. So that was the issue I talked about first at the school board meeting. Like, what are we doing? What measures do we have in place? Are we actually following the law? And then the issue of books came up, and I saw another district, I believe it was Johnston, and I'm like, I'm sure we don't have those books. So then I looked,
Right.
and of course we did. So I followed the policy again. So that's the next thing I spoke out about. And not only did we have those books, we had probably more than we looked at over 100 schools in the state of Iowa And we had more that were sexually explicit probably than any school that we researched. So that's when I started to get involved. I challenged the process with my local district, and they voted 6-1 to keep the book genderqueer in our 9th grade school.
To keep the book genderqueer.
Yes.
I want people to, it's not book banning just because we're conservatives and we're stuck in the, in the 20s or something. This is some very explicit, heavy duty stuff. I mean, I've seen the books. I've created very large poster boards, and I would hold rallies, and I would put them up in a dedicated area, and I would force every adult to walk and read and look, so that you cannot claim ignorance and you understand what is going on in your children's schools.
And it was the final meeting with the board when they made that decision. All I kept hearing was, parents, they were putting this boundary between parents. Like, we have to have these books to keep kids feel safe. We have to give them this outlet. Parents, won't address this. And so I got really concerned about that as well. So I appealed to the Iowa Department of Education. And we started, informing legislators. This is the content that's in the school, because it wasn't just my district. It was every district that challenged it. Little schools, little towns in Iowa, they were having the same issues with their school boards. And so that's when I started to get involved. And, it's more than books. It's more than, in my opinion, I feel our kids are being indoctrinated, and the politics need to come out of the classroom.
And so you got involved because just as a concerned parent, your kid in 10th grade, and just kind of walked right at that time.
Yeah.
And so when was this?
It was after COVID. It was 2021.
Yeah.
And,
so about 3 years for all of us.
Right.
I'm kind of looking around and saying, wait a minute.
Yes. And back to the COVID. So online learning, and my son's always got really good grades, and he was in a language class, and he had to write a paper, and he had us proofread the paper. And I looked at it, and the spelling, topic sentence details, supporting details, he couldn't articulate in this paper. And I thought, you're in 10th grade, what are we teaching of the fundamentals of writing?
How about that?
And so, again, back to academics, I feel like we're not doing a service to our students academically. Because we just continue to graduate them, and they're not proficient. I know we say proficient.
What are we preparing our children for? Right. I mean, and I'm picking up on something that you said when they said, the school was telling you, our purpose essentially is to keep kids safe. So they're creating a barrier between the child and the parent, because the school district, feel as though it's their job, it's their purpose to keep them safe. They're introducing topics that I don't believe is organic. But they're just introducing them forcing them onto the children. And it always calls me, I'm big on what my purpose, right? What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? And I apply that not just to myself, but to others. What is your purpose? What is their purpose? And for school, from a secular perspective, it is the school's purpose is to prepare our children for a future, right? And then when you watch what it is that we're looking at schools, these particular books like Genderqueer and others, Ibram X. Kendi, who says in his material that the solution for past discrimination is present discrimination, and the remedy for present discrimination is future discrimination. So if you're teaching Ibram X. Kendi in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, you're teaching that in order to get rid of past discrimination, and again, I have the blood of slaves coursing through my veins. I'm very aware of my own history. And I still stand here and say this is the greatest country that has ever existed, right? Because we don't have slavery today. We're not China, where they do have slavery today, or certain parts of the Middle East where slavery. We're America. We are progressing with better and better ideas. We look back and said, that is wrong. We don't want to be that. And so therefore, I have never been bred as a business strategy and had my children sold to the highest bidder. That used to be in America. Mm-hmm. But because we are a nation of ideals, continuing to be better. We get to look back and say, hey, this was wrong. We're not going to do that anymore. But Ibram X. Kendi says that's not the way to solve any present discrimination. The solution is to go get a can of kerosene and throw it onto the fire, any little fire, to make it an even bigger fire. But when you understand from a secular perspective, the purpose of education is to prepare our children for a future. You have to ask yourself, based on what they're teaching our children today, what future are they preparing them for? To be serfs, to be woke activists. Right. When you look at, and I was looking in 2010, the OECD did a study of about 470,000 students around the world, 78 countries, and they gave them a test that is very similar to the ACT, SAT, and they focused on 3 subjects: reading, science, math. Guess where America landed out of 78 countries?
You were very well.
Yeah,
Pretty
20,
well, yeah.
26,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In 2018, so from 2010 to 2018, they did it again. 470,000 students across 78 countries. We moved up 1 to 25th place, right? The greatest nation that has ever existed, right? The most powerful nation in the world. And our education, K through 12, ranks 25th, 26th.
Right.
So our children can't read proficiently, they can't write proficiently, they can't do math on grade level generally, but we have time to teach them how to give blowjobs, because that's exactly what is in that book. What is it called? Genderqueer, right?
Well,
we have time to teach that and to illustrate that, but we don't have time to make sure that we get from 25th, 26 up.
There's some point where we hear this, but you took it out of context, right? You took that book out of context.
What context can you place that particular image?
and
Like I
it's
said,
And also, there's graphics, but there's also a little blurb that says to go to kink.com to explore your fantasies.
wow.
And this is in our school libraries, and this makes us crazy because
So
we
you're the
think it
radicals.
shouldn't.
You're
Right.
the extreme.
In that other book, it tells them to go to grinder.com and how to upload their photos discreetly. We are pimping out our children, right? Like we're telling them to go out and these things are safe to do, but oh no, don't tell your parents.
And the thing about it was the options in the school when you challenge those books. One of them is put restrictions on it, parental consent, right? You have to have parental consent before you check out. Wouldn't even explore that option. Wouldn't even say, you know what, at least maybe parental consent. That's when I knew there was a problem. When all of them said, nope, 100% carte blanche, parents don't need to know.
As if they love our children more.
Right.
As if they want better for our children than us.
So I guess my biggest thing now in this year has been sex ed curriculum in schools. So my freshman this year, son, he's in health class, and we got information. Here's the 5 topics we're going over in health class, and it was 5 topics, and then it was said and more. So I contacted the teacher.
I want to know about the and more.
That was it. I said, I want to know, like, what is the and more? Oh, I sent the syllabus to your son, but I can go ahead and send you one too. Like, that's a crazy thing to ask for, but so she sends it to me, and it's also sex education. So I said, well, can I get the information? What are you teaching in the sex education? So I went in for a meeting and went over it, and 20 minutes into the meeting, I'm like, okay, well, these things cover what Iowa law says that we should be teaching.
We should have been.
And currently what the law says. But then it went way beyond that into oral and anal and all of the different kinds of, 15 types of birth control.
Why?
And pictures of parts with STDs, like real pictures. And I'm going to cry again. I don't want my 14-year-old son to think of his future wife with that picture of what he may experience in a healthy relationship.
Right.
Why would you destroy that image.
Why do they feel the need to teach this?
I think they think parents won't do it. I really believe they feel like
I'm
it's
not
fair.
going to teach oral and anal sex to my son. So there
That is true.
That is true too, because that came up in my thing. He's like,
You know what? Okay, I give it. I give them that one. I give them
okay, no.
I would. See, that's why I said Jen is the party. You are right on that. You are right. I will not be teaching my kid about oral and anal sex.
Right.
You are absolutely
Right.
correct on that.
So,
But should a stranger?
We're extreme.
yeah, so just to follow up, the district is working on it now. You know, luckily we have a different administration that we used to have, and so they are working on that.
Hey everyone, just want to interrupt the podcast for a moment to tell you about a special offer. Mike Lindell has done it again. As usual, he's out there in the world finding solutions to problems we all have. My Towels solved a problem that we all had with towels. You go into the store, they look so pretty, they look so soft, they feel soft, they look lotiony, and then you get them home and they don't actually dry your body. Well, that's why Mike Lindell made My Towels. They actually work. They're soft and they absorb. And now My Pillow is excited to announce 2 brand new lines of My Towels. Now, what makes them the best towels ever is that they're now made with a 100% long staple Sherpa cotton. This is a comb ring spun cotton that makes My Towels even softer and more absorbent than ever. And now you get a 6-piece set for an amazing introductory price of $29.98. Now, you know that's not happening. I'm sure you're out there trying to purchase new towels now. You have friends and family coming over for the holidays, and you know that you're not going to get a 6-piece towel set of this quality for $29.98, but you can go to mypillow.com, use promo code Kathy with a K, or call 800-988-3934. That's 800-988-3934 and get your 6-piece introductory set for $29.98. You can get a designer premium line for just $20 more. Either way, you save $50. Everyone actually gets dried off and you look like a champ. So they actually work. Just go to mypillow.com and use promo code Kathy with a K. This offer won't last long, so please go order now.
But it's some of those things, it's like, it's just been happening for so many years and parents weren't aware. And that's the thing is that is my job as a parent. Don't take that away from me. And it was the whole part of zero transparency and it not even being listed in the 5 things.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, and you're right. It has been going on for some time. Like I said, I mean, my daughter was, she had just started kindergarten. And, she came home, so she's 5, 6. And this is 10 years ago. And so she comes home, first day of school, they give you this big stack of paperwork. Right. So I was just going through it randomly, not thinking much about it. And I saw that she had a letter from the guidance counselor. I'm thinking to myself, what does my 5-year-old have a guidance counselor for? Like, I remember having a guidance counselor in 9th grade, 12th grade that said, what college do you want to go to? What you want to take the ACT, the SAT, but I'm like, my baby is 5. What is she be guided on? So I sent an email to the guidance counselor and I asked for her teaching objectives. And she sent back a list of 35 and some of the most ridiculous things. I thought it was outside of her lane, right? Like we all have a lane we are to drive in. And I felt like this is outside. I would never forget it. Number 5 was teaching my daughter how to distinguish between a truth and a lie. And I'm thinking most adults I know can't distinguish between the truth and a lie. So what rubrics are you taking into this class?
What's the magic there?
Number 35, she was going to come home with a permission slip because they're going to be talking about boys and girls' anatomies, right? But number 15 said, they were going to teach my 5-year-old how to identify and respect different family configurations, which is buzzword. Back then, they were a little bit more sly about it, right? They didn't come right out and say it. But I knew enough to know I need to go in, make an appointment, sit down. And I asked her, show me the books, show me what you're going to take into my daughter's classroom to help her to identify and respect different family configurations. And they were beautifully illustrated books of Billy going to his father's home and his father's boyfriend Henry was there, Sally with her 2 moms, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I can tell by talking to the lady, the guidance counselor, she's nice. She is someone I would have coffee with, but I can also tell she would never have the nerve to come and have that same conversation with me as an adult, right? She would never have the courage to walk up to me on the street and just have this conversation. But you're gonna go in front of my 5-year-old, stand there like a subject matter expert and spew these things as if we're all in agreement of it, right? And that was the beginning of this new awakening. I mean, within 5 days, my husband and I had made the decision that we will homeschool our kids. But that was 10 years ago. And she told me that they've been teaching this for an extended period of time, even before. She said I was the very first parent to ever come and question.
And I think that's what happened. Like, we all got busy. Everyone is busy.
Yeah.
And so we just trusted that, back in the 80s and 90s when I was in school, that they were getting that same education. And not all parents have the time and energy. Like, thank goodness Shelly caught it on the forefront. I had to talk to a mom in northeastern Iowa, and her 7th grader came home, and he's like, I can't get some of these images out of my mind, right? So she's like, they've taken that innocence away, which was a seemingly innocent permission form, but the content, he was literally troubled because of some of the things.
They're robbing, I'm telling you, they're robbing our children of their innocence.
Yeah.
They are normalizing abnormal behaviors and relationships and interactions, regardless of what is on, right? When your white son, I'm assuming you're married to, I'm assuming your son is white. Yeah, when your white son walks into a room with my Black daughter, the first thought, now obviously we recognize, you're white. I'm Black. I recognize you're a woman without you telling me first you're a woman.
Right.
I recognize that you're not that much taller than I am, right? I mean, so there are things that we recognize about each other, but that does not now lead to this must be who you are.
Right.
This must be
Right.
what you're thinking.
Right. We're putting stereotypes. Like Jen and I both have blonde. Well, Shelly, we all look like we have blonde hair. We all about the same age. We don't all think the same about every single thing. But when we're labeling, we're literally labeling people, putting them in categories and saying, this is how this person thinks, this is what this person should feel. That is very harming. That is not where we want to go. We are all individual people with individual values. We should all be loved and appreciated for who we are.
Yeah.
In a lot of recovery, different settings or situations, one of the things that's taught to people is to listen to other people and look for similarities. That is how you connect with people. And right now, the teaching of separating yourself is isolating people.
Yeah.
So then we wonder why kids are having mental health issues. We wonder why they're feeling alone. Well, they want 10 labels behind every single person right now. And it's just destructive.
And if you're just you, it's not enough in a culture that is so obsessed with everything external, right? And that's really hard because I believe the overwhelming majority of children are just them, right? I don't have dreams of solving climate change. Does that make me weird? Does that make me less than? Does that make me bad? Right? I just want to play. Right? Like, does that make me odd? And it's very, very anxiety inducing. I remember when I ran for U.S. Senate, I had a consortium of doctors on my team. And I would meet with them regularly. This is as we're coming out of COVID and they're helping me understand, just the different things we were contending with in our country at that time. And I remember 2 of them are psychologists. And they said, Kathy, if you wanted to book an appointment with me, you would have to book out 8 to 9 months because my schedule is packed with children.
Yeah.
And every time I would meet with them, they would say the same thing. It's 8 to 9 months. I'm booking people out 8 to 9 months because my practice is booked with children.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Suicide among our children is high right now. They promised us happiness if we would just let them bring in CRT and all this queer stuff and all this racism, this and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah,
We'll be happier, our children will be happier, and it has literally turned into ashes.
Yeah.
And so with all of that, I know for me, again, I wasn't expecting this when I stepped out into the public sphere politics 3 years ago, but now I'm hesitant to even tell people my name because I know they're going to Google me. And and I'm called every name in the book. I mean, and with the algorithms, they come up first sometimes, right? And I tell people, if you're going to Google me, go to page 3. Right. It gets better. By page 3.
Or don't use Google.
Most people are going to, but I'm like, go to page 3. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? When this wasn't what you were expecting. You just wanted to stand in the gap for your children. Why are you ladies doing this? Because you've been maligned. You're associated with Moms for Liberty. You've already mentioned that. You're part of the organization. The Southern Poverty Law Center came out because they are, omniscient, right? They know everything. And they've now labeled you an extremist group. You know you're on somebody's watch list.
Right.
So why are you doing this? Why won't you just go and be quiet?
Gosh, for me that came when I realized that as a small business owner that I'm not under a corporation that's keeping me quiet. I will not lose my job if I speak out. And so many of my clients in the salon were in that position where if they speak out, they will lose their job. They were very fearful. So, kind of God moment of, for such a time as this, okay, here we are, and start speaking out. I had, you were talking about, the whole Google thing. I had a group of people locally who plastered pictures of my salon, put my name out there, did as much possible damage as they possibly could, and even saw some people in my town that were part of that. Very hurtful, and at the same time, I'm very grateful for that moment. Why? Because, it made me realize there's going to be people who don't like me. That's okay. We also live in a free country where we don't have to agree. And I'm grateful for that. What's going on in someone else's head is none of my business. And that's been a huge part of what I have learned in this. There have to be some people who speak out and move forward with it. And, I do believe there's a huge force trying to completely destroy the nuclear family. I do see that.
Black Lives Matter on their website.
Yes.
It was one of their mission statements was to destroy the traditional nuclear family.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yes. So, and it's so helpful having other women, in a national organization who is supportive and, we all love on each other. So we hold each other up during those times.
Yeah. You're being called a racist. You're being told you have a black son, black and white.
Yeah.
But you're being told, because I was reading some of the articles about Moms for Liberty and what The Hill, I think it was, right? So that's very widely read source of news saying that Moms for Liberty is trying to stop the teaching of Black history. Why do you continue doing what you're doing?
Because no one on the left is going to listen to us. They're going to take it and say they want to quit teaching Black history. I have a Black son, half Black. His dad's very Black. I call him all the time and I go, does this make me racist? And he says, are white women telling you this? I said, yeah.
It's always.
He says, well, you know half as much as they do, so keep moving on. But he's the exact same way. He grew up in not a great part of Iowa. I mean, he's gone through it all. And I say, I'm not going to allow people to tell my son that he has less opportunity because his dad is Black, or more because I'm white. I've made bad choices in my life. I didn't grow up poor, but I made bad choices. I went and partied through college, believe it or not. So I didn't actually go to college. It's choices that you make. It had nothing to do with the color of my skin or how much money I had, right? And so I'm not going to let anyone teach him, or then now he has nieces and nephews, right? He's got brothers and sisters at his dad's house that have children, and I refuse to allow them to be brought up taught that they are less than or have less opportunities. So we can't just go away, sit down and be quiet, because then what?
Just allow the other side to do what they're doing.
Right.
And I don't see it turning out good if we be quiet, right? And I believe that it's going to be mama bears. I mean, we do what we do to protect our babies. Being a mama bear used to be admired and revered. Today, Terry, you're called, a radical trying to destroy our democracy. Why do you why are you continuing to move forward?
Because I care about the future of our country. And I feel like when I saw it in COVID, we started losing freedoms, and a lot of people didn't care. They just keep moving that line. And we need to start teaching kids about American exceptionalism. Let's learn that this is a constitutional republic. Let's learn that we are all created equal. Let's learn that we should be judged by our character. And we need to get those things back in, or that next generation, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And I always like to say, in the political arena, and I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but what's the difference between a patriot and a politician? And a politician cares about the next election. A patriot cares about future generations. And we need people that are going to start caring about future generations. And those patriots can be us moms. Well, I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, because I don't believe we have a plan B.
No.
I think about it often, like, will this be the generation that loses the greatest nation on the planet, on our watch?
Not on my watch.
We're the ones. And like I say to my children, this stuff, when you're getting dragged, you have some choices to make, right? And I remember being dragged myself and having this come to Jesus moment. Okay, are you going to be bitter now? I have reasons to be bitter. I can sit back and just count them off, right? Of how people have done me dirty. But I made a decision. I will not be bitter, because I think that puts up a wall, an obstacle. You have to stay open so that you can see the opportunities and be unencumbered so you can run to or towards those opportunities. But I don't have a plan B. I don't wake up in the morning saying, I can't wait to be rejected today.
Right.
But I also recognize that this has truly made me stronger. It has made me more focused. It has made me more determined, right? If I had any ambiguity about why someone like me, who am I to be running with the big dogs? I am Kathy G. Barnette. This is my country. And I love it, and I want to do my part in it, right? And I don't have all the answers. I don't think you ladies believe you have all the answers. But I don't believe we are the radical extremist hate group that we're being labeled as. I believe we're moms I believe we're wives who love our families and our husbands and our children. I believe we are sisters who want better for the community around us. And I believe that we deserve our voices to be heard and not told to shut up and sit down. Right?
Amen.
Amen.
Would you do it over again if
100
you
times.
Yes.
100 times,
Absolutely.
knowing all that you know today,
Absolutely.
you would still be doing exactly what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
No questions
No
asked.
question. Made some great friends. You know, we've lost some friends, but we've made on the other side.
I've lost a lot of friends, but you're right. I've met a lot of great people along the way. I'm very grateful, very hopeful.
Me too.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.